Go. We'll be live again in just a second. Thank you for coming back, Mariela. Carolyn, thank you. Mariela, can you check with Michelle to make sure she's got everything she needs? That'd be great. All right. All right. So welcome to Cafecito con Colon on this fabulous Friday. Thank you for joining me today. We'll give folks just a couple seconds to get back on. Lawrence Roybal, let me tell you, Dr. Lawrence Roybal is like, he finds me no matter where I'm at because he's always by my side. Thank you, Dr. Roybal, for finding us this morning. We're glad you're with us. Hopefully we'll get some other folks to join us today. I had my setting wrong on Zoom to Facebook, and it set things up in private mode, and we are now public, and I have got a full crew here today. We wanted to make sure that we gave Michelle plenty of time to log in and get with us. And now we have a trifecta of awesome leaders from the city of Albuquerque during this Women's History Month. We are centering awesome women on Cafecito con Colon, and all three of these women qualify in that awesome women category. And of course, I'm joined on Fridays because of Enlace New Mexico and the New Mexico Hispanic Heritage Committee co-hosting on Fridays with me here on Cafecito con Colon. We are joined by my ever ready and always awesome Jessica Perea of Enlace New Mexico. Good morning, Jessica.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So glad you're here. Michelle, you look terrific. I haven't seen you, it feels like it's been a minute.
It's too long. Wow. And my husband was a guest a few months ago during the Muertos when we put on an altar, and Paloma sends her hellos. She's been busy at the legislature, her fourth legislature. So you mentored her well.
I love Paloma. I'm always in her corner, and she knows that. I've been telling her that for years, but you should remind her because I am always a text message or phone call away, and I am all hers. I am absolutely in her corner, and I love doing that episode for Dia de los Muertos with your husband. That was terrific. That was a great episode. We had over 1,200 views or 1,500 views on that episode. It was a good one. So thank you, Michelle.
Awesome.
Welcome back.
Good
to see you again. So Jessica, we're going to get started right away here, and I'm going to let Jessica introduce Michelle to get things started, and then I'll introduce Caroline, and after I introduce Caroline, I'll go back to Jessica for Mariela. And Jessica's really going to take the lead today. I'm going to sit back and enjoy. I have some links that I'm going to post up real quick here. It's 9:07. I'm going to take just 3 minutes. I normally take 15 minutes, but since I've got so much awesomeness here on Cafecito con Colon today, I'm cutting way back on my links. We're glad that Dr. Gomez Chavez and Lala were able to join us. And Evelyn, great to see you this morning. I am thrilled you are here. So yesterday, I talked for a minute or two about the conversation, I guess, that we're finally having about what we know is true over the last year. And what we know is true over the last year is that there has been a tremendous amount of increased violence against Asians in America. And there are several root causes we can point to, but the root cause isn't what's important. What's important is the conversation on how we push back and how we have a conversation about making sure that the Asian communities feels heard and they are seen, and that we're doing everything we can to support them during this time. There is an update there regarding the shooting in Atlanta and some of the victims of that shooting. What we know is we've lost 8 individuals, 6 of whom were of Asian heritage. And I hope that you will find that article to be enlightening, and we can continue that conversation. I have many individuals on my team at the Office of the State Auditor of Asian Descent. I begin and end every day with a wonderful Asian American who was naturalized many years ago here in the United States. For 25 years, she's been by my side. And it is a very difficult, confusing, and stressful time for that community. So I hope that we can make sure and keep them front and center as we have over this last year for many marginalized communities for many different reasons. So Speaking of marginalization and inequities, let me also give you this opportunity to register for a panel discussion that's going to happen next Tuesday at 12:30, hosted by Axios. You know that I follow Axios. For those of you that are regulars on Cafecito con Colon, this particular forum will be regarding Hard Truths is the name of their events that they host. And this is regarding systemic racism in sports, from youth leagues all the way to elite levels of competition. They're going to unpack deeply entrenched inequities that shape the sports industry as we know it. So I hope that you will take a minute to look at that potential opportunity. The other thing that was a great, it is Friday, and folks that know me know that I am a Robert Glazer fan, Friday Forward, and this is a great TEDx that he featured on his blog, and it spoke to me loudly, and I'm not going to go into it, but you can check that out. In terms of local news today, we're going to go real quick here. I got 3 or 4. I just want to focus on the Albuquerque Journal today. They have some phenomenal stories in there. One featuring just a great leader in the community, Mike Kivitz, who has been president, if you can believe this, for 43 years. Mike has been leading Adelante Development Center. He is retiring after 43 years. So check out that Albuquerque Journal profile of Mike Kivitz. This one here, speaking of profiles, I guess Patino put on the cherry red blazer and he laid on the charm thick and heavy yesterday at that press conference. So there's the story on that. For me, folks that know me know that I'm not a huge sports guy, but this next story is a story that just makes my heart grow. We made history again yesterday with the swearing in of former Congresswoman from the 1st Congressional District, Deb Haaland. She was sworn in yesterday as Secretary of the Interior in Washington, D.C., to become the first Native American to run a cabinet agency in the entire history of our country. And again, correct folks when they're slightly off, because a lot of folks are saying that she's the first cabinet secretary that's Native American or indigenous for Interior, but that is not exactly right. It is partially true. She is the first Native American cabinet member in the history of the United States of any agency in the country at the federal level that reports to the president. So what a beautiful photo we have there. Thank you, Albuquerque Journal, for doing a great job. And last night, I logged off the Senate hearing last night at 2:45, I should say this morning, at 2:45 this morning. I saw some incredibly challenging behavior on the floor that was extremely disappointing in terms of a lack of decorum. There were horrible condescending interactions between members. It was very, very disappointing. And that is why I put up that article from Friday Forward. I hope you'll read that in light of some of the things you might read in the Journal about last night's Senate session that ran all the way until 2:45 this morning. But 2 big things happened. The childhood amendment to provide additional resources from the permanent fund to education, mostly pre-K and early childhood development, but also K through 12, a small portion. That resolution, House Joint Resolution number 1, passed yesterday, and now it will be a ballot question for the people of New Mexico to determine whether they want to make that additional investment from the Land Grant Permanent Fund to 6.25%, which is an increase from the current 5% from that permanent fund. It'll generate an extra $127 million a year to expand early childhood education. The second bill that passed, and that was the one that passed around 2 o'clock this morning before they started their final closing comments, was the paid sick leave bill. And that passed on a vote of 25-16. And it's got some very, very important changes in there. And thank you, Karina. Please take some time to look at that paid sick leave bill that made it out of the Senate this morning around 2 o'clock or 2:30. And President Pro Tem Stewart was unbelievable. She withstood a tremendous amount of pressure, questions, bullying, and behavior that was, I think, clearly out of line objectively by anybody's standards. So The heat of the battle gets difficult sometimes, but I think our leaders, our elected leaders, we have an obligation to try and rise above and maintain decorum that our offices deserve and the people of New Mexico deserve. So, all right. So look, that's it. Look, 9:14. It wasn't my fault. I cut down on my links today. I really did, ladies. But the challenge was I lost 3 minutes because we didn't connect properly first. So I'm sorry. But here's what I'm going to do for the first time today. And I want to say thank you, Dr. Dawson, for reminding me. But here's what's going to happen for the very first time. Cafecito con Colon celebrated its 1-year anniversary on Tuesday. So we're 1 year and 3 days into this. We've been going Mondays through Saturdays every week for a year now. And except when work got in the way or hearings got in the way for the legislature during the last 60 days. But for the very first episode, while I have this trifecta of women leader awesomeness from the city of Albuquerque and my fantastic co-hostess, Jessica Perea, for the very first time, we are going to enable closed caption on Cafecito con Colon. So how about that? It looks like it's working. I don't know if, I hope it's feeding to Facebook properly. I'll check that out. And while I check that out, I'm going to turn this over to my awesome friend, Jessica Perea, the co-host of Cafecito con Colon, thanks to Enlace New Mexico and the New Mexico Hispanic Heritage Committee, bringing you this episode of Cafecito con Colon. Altogether awesome.
Thank you for such a sweet introduction. And again, it's such an honor to be able to co-host and to be able to join you here on Fridays. And I want to start by introducing the wonderful Michelle Melendez. And she is the inaugural director of the City of Albuquerque Office of Equity and Inclusion. She's a Chicana native of Albuquerque with more than 18 years of experience in community development, leadership development, and advocacy to address the social determinants of health and their policy antecedents. She holds a master's degree in public administration and a bachelor's in communication. And Michelle brings a lifelong vision of racial equity to the Office of Equity and Inclusion and believes that her relationship with incredibly dedicated social justice, economic development, and public health champions will lead the city of Albuquerque to embrace equity as a guiding principle in all areas of civic life. Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
Hello. Good morning. Thank you
Good
for having
morning.
me. Very nice. I appreciate the invitation. And
Of
for my
course.
colleagues, I'd like to really just tell you how much I enjoy being with my colegas, Mariela and Carolyn. And when my daughter asked me what the subject was today, I said, it's chingonas in City Hall. So
I love that.
Chicanas and chingonas.
That's right. I got to tell you, my director of the Government Accountability Office, I think that's her favorite title is Mera Mera Chingona. She loves that. But welcome to Cafecito con Colon. It's great to be back with you, Michelle. I'm very disappointed because it appears as though we can see the subtitles on Zoom, but when you go Zoom live to Facebook, they don't translate. So it appears as though Facebook isn't showing our subtitles. So Dr. Dawson, we're going to have to keep working on that, but keep me focused on it. I'd love to be able to do it. I can't afford to pay for it. But I do want to figure out a way we can get free service for subtitles because we love to be as inclusive as we possibly can. So with that, let me take a minute. So Michelle, thank you for joining us. Jessica, thanks for providing that great introduction for Michelle. If you don't mind, I am going to take the liberty of introducing Carolyn Ortega. She is the Director of Animal Welfare. She comes from the city with a wealth of knowledge in operations and fiscal management, as well as program development and planning. And I can attest to her expertise, having worked with her for many years in the what I like to call social profit sector, but many people call the nonprofit sector. And she's just led in philanthropy and in nonprofit in our community for many years. She's a fantastic businesswoman. She's got an eye for the future. She is all about accountability and financial and fiscal oversight. She's overseen the operations and development of the Atrisco companies, which is how we first met. For the last 13 years prior to being with the city. She was the CFO, she was the COO, and the executive director there for Atrisco. During the time, she increased the number of companies in that enterprise to 7. The lucky 7 enterprises got to be the beneficiary of her great leadership. She implemented new programs, expanded the staff to about 200 wonderful New Mexicans that worked with Atrisco companies. She received a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and Accounting at the University of Phoenix, and she's also an Emerging Leaders graduate of the United States Small Business Association. Among Caroline's long list of accomplishments are receiving the Catholic Charities Simon of Cyrene Award for Community Involvement in Education back in 2017, the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce President's Award for Excellence, the University of Phoenix Alumni Community Service Award, and the Women of Influence Award by the New Mexico Business Weekly. Look, if you Google Caroline Ortega, you're going to find out a lot about her, but let me just close with saying she's a lifelong New Mexico resident. She lives in my home county, Valencia County. She is a Valenciana now. She lives there in Los Lunas, and she's the proud parent of 4 dogs, 5 cats, 2 pigs, a goat, a lamb, 2 chickens, 2 rabbits, and oh, she also married her college sweetheart. So, Carolyn, there's lots to love you about, and I'm just thrilled to have you on Cafecito con Colon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored. You are a wonderful friend. I consider you a lifelong friend and a mentor, and someday I will be borrowing your ability and your energy to be in 5 places at once. So
I love that. I appreciate that. And I get inspired by being surrounded with great leaders like you. And that's where I get my energy. You know, I start my days early. This morning, I did my 4 miles walk this morning, and I started at 5 o'clock and had breakfast with a mentee. And then I got to come be with all of you. So I live every day with gratitude and in service. And I know that's the way you live your life too, Carolyn, and you set a fantastic example. I did mention her college sweetheart, who is fortunate enough to now be her husband, but they have 5 grandchildren and 3 adult children at this point. So Carolyn, thank you for your friendship over the years. And we look forward to learning a lot more about your leadership and your vision there for the city of Albuquerque as you lead. And ladies, I'm going to ask, as I'm going to turn things over to Jessica, and you're probably thinking, I wonder when, because all this guy does is talk. But I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to introduce Mariela, this proud Chicana and let's see, Ecuatoriana, huh?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
good. That's what I thought. And I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to do that. But I do want to ask you just to generally start thinking, because I've been trying to center us on Women's History Month. So I know Jessica loves to ask about kind of, you know, big figures in your life that inspired you, whether they be contemporary women or women in history who inspired you. So I'll ask you to think about that, because we definitely, I have not done as many episodes dedicated to Women's History Month as I would have liked. I've had a lot of women, but we just talked a lot about a lot of programs, and just it's kind of been something that, because of the cancellations I've had to have due to the legislative session, I haven't had as many historians on. But I did have Dr. Burke here yesterday, and that woman is a superstar when it comes to pay equity and the history of the Equal Rights Amendment in America. So we were glad to be able to center her yesterday. So with that, I'll turn it over to this superstar friend of mine, fantastic person making a difference at the University of New Mexico at Enlace every day. Jessica, take it away and bring us our fantastic Chicana.
Of course. Mariela Ruiz Angel is a proud Chicana and Ecuatoriana, born and raised in the border town of El Paso, Texas. She understands the needs of diverse communities and works to empower, educate, and advocate for all Burqueños. As the city coordinator of the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, in her new role as the city coordinator for the new Albuquerque Community Safety Department, a 3rd branch of public safety, she ensures that both initiatives follow through with its mission of advocating and promoting a citywide culture that values the voices of all residents. Prior to her roles at the city of Albuquerque, she worked in leadership roles in various industries, including education, business development, and corporate customer relations. Mariela holds an MBA in Human Resources and a MSW in Leadership and Administration. Good morning, Mariela. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so honored.
Yeah, so just like Auditor Colon was saying, we want to honor Women's History Month. So I want to kick us off by saying, if you guys want to share some women who have inspired you or who have been your role models? These women could be past or these women can be present.
Well, thank you for that question. I'd like to bring in some of my ancestors into our space today, because that's where I draw a lot of my strength and my, I think the will that we bring to this work. So first of all, I have my grandmother still, and I like to do shout outs to her. I'm always calling K&W and dedicating songs to my grandparents who live here in Albuquerque. So I'd like to honor my grandmother, Arcelia Melendez. And we just did her DNA recently, and we found out that her 12th great grandmother, born in Mexico City, Maria Agustina de Clavijo y Abarca Villalobos, La India Mexica. So we didn't know that this was going to come to pass, but this confirms my belief all these years that I come from a very long line of warrior women, you know, and then honor my mother as well. 46 years as a nurse this year, and we celebrated her ancestry this year. She did her DNA as well and is Irish descent, so that brings new meaning to, you know, celebrating St. Patrick's Day. But all the nurses, that's primarily a woman's work, and it has been, and that's who has really gotten us through this pandemic this year. So that's who I'd like to honor with my words today.
Well, I bet Paloma Mexica, I love that history that you did on that, on those many generations, didn't she?
Yeah, we didn't know that was going to come up, but it did on ancestry.com.
Love it. Go ahead, Jessica. Sorry, butting in. I promise I'm done.
No, you're fine. I wanted to mention that was beautiful what you said about nurses, because you know they're the ones holding us up right now and during these harsh times of the pandemic.
I think similarly, I'd like to kind of piggyback off that. You know, although I'm from El Paso, born and raised, and I do love that border town very much for its food and culture and hospitality and love. My family's born and raised in New Mexico. My mother and my family are from little Tucumcari, New Mexico. We come from, you know, farming, and my grandmother is from an even smaller town called Norton, New Mexico, ranchers. And I think it's, you know, similarly, we're not nurses, but we have a very long history of social work and counseling, and women who have really on their own, right? Most of the leaders that are in my family, the matriarchs, are women who have been single mothers, who have raised children, who have raised other people's children. And I just think that, you know, I couldn't go without saying that the women in my life, my padrinas, my grandmother, just the strength that I've seen in my own family has been pretty much the guide for where I'm at today. And so similarly to Michelle, we're getting to know our ancestry and trying to understand our background, because we are finding that New Mexico is just rich, and there is some really interesting history, especially in those areas up in eastern New Mexico. So I'm so honored to be able to even be here. It was one of the reasons I moved to New Mexico, because I just wanted to be close to my amazing family and the women and men that helped raise me. So those are my heroes, and those are the people that I work every day to make proud and to make sure that I'm being true to our family, our community, and our heritage.
I love that. It's not every day that we get to feature Condado de Quay. Quay County is in the house.
I know, there's some like real serious, like deep-seated history in that area. So
that's for sure. we got the Rattlers in the house today.
That's right. My family would be very proud to even hear that coming out of anybody's mouth.
Hey, we love Tucumcari, Quay County. It's a beautiful part of our beautiful state with great history. Thank you for bringing that up, Mariela.
Y también los de Mora.
Hey, Condado de Mora. Condado de Mora. I love Mora County. That's for sure. All right. Well, let's hear from Carolyn.
And to piggyback off of that on history, I mean, I was born and raised in Albuquerque, but my genealogy takes me all the way back to the 1600s. I can trace my genealogy back about 10 generations in New Mexico. So I'm very proud of that. And then also as a single mother, my mother had me at 16. And by the time she was 24, she had 4 of us and ended up being a single mother. I think she has been my largest inspiration because of everything that she persevered. You know, she did it with ganas. She did it with that passion and that grit, right? That showed me that no matter the circumstances that you're in, that you can change those circumstances for your benefit, and also to use those experiences as I'm not going to use tools in the toolbox because that's a guy thing. So accessories in the closet, that's what those are, those experiences that you take with you forward. The thing that inspired me most about my mom, we know as parents, we sacrifice so much for our kids when they're growing up. But my mom made a significant sacrifice that changed the trajectory of my life. I was working for a company as a secretary, and actually a secretary is what I aspired to be. So I thought I had arrived in the position I always wanted, but I was a secretary, and it was time for me to leave because the other secretary was coming back. Well, I didn't want to leave. I loved that job, and the CFO at the time offered me a position of a bookkeeper. Of course, I didn't know what a bookkeeper was. So I said, well, what exactly is that? And he said, don't worry, I'll teach you. I said, great. Okay, I'll take it. Well, it turns out that the CEO had an idea of who they wanted for that position. And it was my mother, who had worked very closely with this company as a banker, and the CEO wanted her in that role. I called my mom, said, hey, they're going to teach me how to be a bookkeeper. I'm so excited. I'm going to take this job. And it turns out a few weeks later, I find out that my mom took her name out of the hat to take that position and allowed me to step forward and take that position. And that really did change the trajectory of my life. And I really attribute that moment in time to where I am today. So I live every day to make her proud and make her proud that she actually made that sacrifice for her daughter.
That was honestly incredibly beautiful. You know, when you mentioned that our parents, they sacrificed so much for us, especially for me, my mom has sacrificed so much for us, for my siblings and I to be here where we're at. She's just my hero and the strongest person that I know. She's a woman, and that's my mother, and she comes from strong women. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to hear about all the great women and how they uplift us and how they're able to give us that strength to be community leaders. And going off of that, I wanted to ask you all to speak about your work and what drives your passion for your work.
Well, I think, go ahead.
Michelle, do you want to go?
Sure, thank you, sorry. You know, we've grown our team. I've got 3 years now. This is my 3-year anniversary of starting this Office of Equity and Inclusion, and we now have 9 people on our team. And this past year has been like no other, and that's true for all of us, but really fighting the dual pandemics of COVID-19, of course, which has had a disproportionate impact on people of color and women, and racism. You know, racism has been a public health emergency for a very long time, but it hasn't been treated as such until recently. And although our team is a little bit suffering from some racial battle fatigue, because, you know, it's a nonstop. Even just this week alone, we saw the 1-year anniversary of Breonna Taylor's murder at the hands of police, and still no justice there. You know, we saw those violent, deadly attacks on Asian American women. And even if they weren't deadly, there were also other attacks on women and Asian people across the country, and that's just really concerning. And then, we know that there are children crossing the border because of famine and hunger and violence in Central America. And so these things weigh very, very heavily on us. But we also saw some excellent progress. And, the legislature did some really great work in terms of passing paid sick leave. That's going to be a huge, huge boost for women in the workforce, especially. And, passing a higher minimum wage and covering domestic workers. And then that land grant permanent fund, making many more resources available for our children. All of those are going to have a huge, huge impact on racial justice. And that's the kind of thing that really keeps us going. Our office as well has passed, with the council's and the mayor's support, some really landmark legislation this past 6 months. One is a bill that reaffirmed and strengthened our city's commitment to racial equity and social justice, and really calls for all departments within city government to use racial equity impact assessment tools and to really understand the impact that our policies and programs are having on different people from different backgrounds in our city, so that we can try to get better outcomes. And then more recently, the City Council unanimously adopted a racial equity criterion when deciding capital improvement projects. So this has the potential to really, really invest many more dollars in those areas of our city that have been underinvested. And that kind of bringing resources and equity to our city will have huge payoffs in terms of making us all a much more thriving city, because we all do better when we all do better. That's what we really believe. That's our values. And so this isn't a zero-sum game. We don't see this as taking away from those who have enjoyed a lot of advantage over time, but rather bringing everybody into the civic life of our city. And we will be a better city, a stronger city for it. And we really have to focus this next year on the recovery and focusing on women-owned and businesses owned by people of color who've been disproportionately impacted. Everyone has been impacted, but women have dropped out of the labor force, oftentimes because when they had to make decisions about who was going to stay home during the pandemic with kids, and if men are making more, which they do on average make more, then it makes sense for the man in the family to keep going to work and a woman to stay home. But that's going to have huge implications in terms of their own career advancement, the years on the job, the savings towards retirement. And that's unjust. So that's a definition of equity. When things are unjust and they are preventable, that's where we should focus our efforts to really change that. And that's what our office is organized to do within city government, is try to change those systemic issues that could be changed, because they're not intentional, but they're having impacts that are inequitable. So thank you for
well
that question.
stated. So well stated. Great question, Jessica. Thank you, Michelle, for that. Really shining a great spotlight on an office that is under-celebrated. And I think now more than ever, we as a community hopefully are really understanding the importance of the work you do every day. So thank you for leading. It's a big moment. Let me just say two quick things here, and then I'm going to give it back to you, Jessica. I know Jessica didn't believe me that I was going to just let her take over the whole show, but I'm very excited because Paloma Mexica just shared our live stream here. So that's very exciting for me. And I also want to say that the governor just announced that we are increasing to our next phases, because the first phase, we have now met that 60% threshold. So we'll be going into the next phase, moving down from our educators. And I will post in the chat those new groups that are going to be eligible for the vaccine. But generally speaking, it's going to be our frontline essential workers, residents of congregate care facilities, and New Mexico's residents who are 60 and older. 60 and older. That's going to be the big new move there in these. And then other essential workers are listed. So folks, be watching for your text messages. If you registered, we're just opening these floodgates. We've We've done a phenomenal job. We're in the top 3, no matter how you count. If you count first shot, fully vaccinated, whatever, New Mexico is in the top 3 in the country of vaccine distribution, turning those into vaccinations. So congratulations to Department of Health, all our leaders in the cabinet who have pitched in to help make sure that we execute on the executive's plan to get vaccines to become vaccinations as we protect New Mexicans. Over 500,000 people in New Mexico have their first shot, and over 350,000, I think, have both shots. So pretty amazing. And I just wanted to break in with that breaking news here on Cafecito con Colon. Jessica Perea, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. I think it's super important that everybody, well, not everybody, but the people who need to get vaccinated. And I'm so proud of New Mexico for being top 3 in that. Carolyn, do you want to share your story and speak about your work and what drives your passion for your work?
Absolutely. My whole life, I've been a philanthropist. And being a philanthropist means that you give a voice to those who don't have a voice. I mean, historically, definitely that voice that I'm speaking about was for humans, but right now it's about the animals. I think that I chose to come to work for Animal Welfare Department because it was the closest thing to my passion of making a difference in the community for the most vulnerable population. So the choices were kids or animals. To me, are the most vulnerable. And Carol Pierce has the kids covered, so I figured I would handle the animals. Coming in, I came in mid-COVID. I came in May of last year, and I honestly thought, what are you thinking? What a big challenge you are going to face. Not only are you going into a department that has high visibility and a community passion that surpasses many other departments, but you are also coming in mid-pandemic. What I found is that I couldn't have picked a better time to come into the city of Albuquerque. I think what it allowed for is someone who has been in the not-for-profit sector that has had to turn on a dime because of the challenges that not-for-profits face. So I was able to come in, sit down, understand what was happening and how to modify and to be able to be creative and innovative. And I also found that my staff was willing and able to be able to do that. And that actually, to be honest, surprised me a little bit. But I found that I have an amazing staff. All they needed to do was be let loose to get those things done. They had so many great ideas. And I think right now, that is actually what's driving me. I'm able to see that the team is so motivated to make changes. I've never been in an organization that is so passionate about what they do. I think every single person in this organization probably has adopted or fostered at least one pet. So they don't only work in what they do, they live in what they do. And that is just so very inspiring to me. And I think that there's a lot that I can do with that. And now that I know what they're capable of, you should expect to see some amazing things moving forward. And I hope to be back on your show in a few months to tell you what those amazing things are. But in the meantime, I am just so proud to be part of the city. I am so blown away with the leadership of the city, the mayor and his initiatives and how he runs the city like a business. I always believe that if you bring business mentality into the not-for-profit or the civic world, there is nothing that you can't do. And I think that's why the city has been so doing so well over the last 4 years, not to mention he really pulled in some amazing women to help lead that fight. And they are actually the ones who are inspiring me as well. You know, I worked with Mariela for a very long time, and I've always thought so highly of her and her capacity for just being motivated and getting in there and rolling up her sleeves, that she motivates me. And Michelle, it's been such an honor to work with her. I can feel her passion when I walk by her about making change in this community. And that's the kind of women, you know, I am so proud to be surrounded by. So, so many things are motivating now. I found the right place, I think, in my career, and it was the perfect time for that.
The feeling is mutual, and I can't wait to spend more time in person with our colleagues.
That was beautifully said. Mariela, do you want to share?
Yeah, so, you know, this is my second career. I'm in the sunrise of this. When my grandparents got to a point where they were starting to struggle a little bit more, I moved home to New Mexico to be closer to my mother, who was taking care of them. And so what a beautiful experience that was. But I had already been in my 20s. I pursued money. I wanted to be that corporate woman, and I did it. I was able to, you know, move around and get to know a lot of different industries. And I found that I had a really great niche for communication and for team building and for connection and being a catalyst to some change. And so when I moved back to New Mexico to be closer, I realized I didn't necessarily want to go back into that kind of, you know, hustle and bustle that was not as, you know, it was like very robotic. It didn't really have the feeling of like, I wasn't passionate about it as much. And so, so I decided to go back for a master's in social work, and that changed my life. And actually I took a job at the legislature because I didn't want to jump back into corporate world. So I thought, I'm going to go try something completely different. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made for myself. I mean, I encourage it every time I meet with somebody who's like, I need a job. I'm like, go work at the legislature. It was eye-opening. And what it really allowed me to see is how to truly make change. From a policy perspective, how that then trickles down to cities, and how it can trickle up to, you know, national levels. It was eye-opening. And so I was lucky enough that I had people who advocated for me and felt confident that I could work for city government. And so I actually was brought in as a contractor under the Barry administration been about 6 years now. And had an opportunity to start up some programmatic work under different foundations that had given money to the city. So Bloomberg and Kellogg and CUNY, fantastic foundations who have just been a major support to our city as a whole, and partners. And it was during that time that Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs and OIRA had been already nationally in other cities had been started. And so it was something that I think our community really needed, right? It was an office that was dedicated to helping to connect immigrants and refugees to services and civic engagement, right? Which is absolutely necessary. It allowed for those individuals to really have a focused voice and for us to really elevate that up to the top. And so that's what that office started off. And it was very complicated because it was under an administration who was not as immigrant friendly. And so it was a lot of different types of emotions and stresses that we myself and the community went through. But at the end of the day, we were able to really move forward and get things done. And then when this administration under Mayor Keller came through, man, everything exploded. And all of a sudden, we had this amazing leader who was like, we're totally going to uplift this office. And they put it with Michelle's Office of Equity and Inclusion. And she just was like, let's, every idea that you've ever had, let's think about that and let's roll with it. And so that was an amazing experience. And now we have this amazing office who really does just concentrate on language access, right? Making sure that people who come to the city can really have access to all services. we were able to really help incorporate people getting their testing when COVID-19 happened, food boxes, rental assistance. I mean, the list goes on. And I really believe that we wouldn't have had that same type of equity had we not had these offices. And so I'm so happy with that. And then going into now, last year, we did have it has been a rough ride in regards to policing. And historically, it has, I don't have even the words for it. It has, there's been a lot of racism and biases that have come into place when it comes to policing. And although we have really great police, it's not enough. And I think that we have put a lot of strain on our police systems to be everything. And so last year, after we saw the George Floyd video, and we had already been having conversations, because historically we had ourselves in Albuquerque have been, we've had that same kind of abuse. So the mayor took, we all jumped in and we started a cabinet level department that will be a third response to 911. It is, right, when we get 911 calls, we don't always have to send a fireman. We don't always have to send a police person, right? They don't need a badge and a gun. They might actually just need a social worker or a counselor or a promotora who can go out and actually just say, what can we connect you with? What's going on, right? How do we do preventative work that's long-term so that we don't get to that crisis anymore, right? So that's what this new department is about. It's been about 8 months of intense planning, but we are at a point where we will start to implement very soon. We're very excited. We're still meeting heavily with community to make sure people are educated about what this means when you call 911. But the reality is that this type of department, this reimagination around policing, is a national model that many people are starting to realize that, like, we have an entire other type of response that social workers and all these different types of behavioral health specialists have really been already doing, right? So why are we not lifting that voice and letting those folks really go out and change the way that we engage with our community around policing, right? And it doesn't have to be a mental and behavioral health situation, right? We need to stop policing neighborhoods in which are overly policed. Let's put some people on the streets that don't look like police and don't look like fire, and actually see what that means and what that looks like. So anyways, with all of that said, as you can see, I'm very passionate about high level change. This is, clearly I've been really successful, I think, in my career in just giving the ganas, right? Like just going in and just pushing forward as much as I can. Honestly, similar to Carolyn, you took away my thunder, Carolyn. Like, I had an opportunity to work with Carolyn early on, and other women as well. I could name a whole bunch, but the reality is that these are women who, in this new career, really taught me just how to do this work, right? Michelle Melendez, as a director that I had, was fantastic. I mean, she really was like, we got to push and we have to challenge. And when do you do that? And how do you do that? I mean, it's a complicated world, and especially for Hispanic women, when you live in a world in which mostly the decision makers are white men. So I think that we have to acknowledge, and I will say that, like, the women that I have had the opportunity to work with have been those models for me, and help me. I go to them when I'm like, I'm in this situation, I don't know what to do. So now I'm doing it for other future women who are coming up, and I'm like, I want to be that same kind of person. So I think that there is so much good stuff happening at the city. I've been so blessed to be in a situation where, under two different types of administrations, completely different, I've been able to do the work that I like to do, and that I think really benefits our entire community, my family, myself. And that's what this is really about, is that at the end of the day, maybe in my 20s, money drove me, but now community and family and the long-term work of our state and our city is what really drives me going forward.
It doesn't get any better than that. And let me bump in to say it's a perfect opportunity to really celebrate and lift up the countless civil servants who get out of bed every day and work so hard to serve their communities. You know, in the old days, and when I give speeches all over the state or virtually these days, I talk a lot about this. And that is, in the old days, civil servants were celebrated. If you worked for the federal government, local government agencies, if you worked for the state, you were celebrated. You know, I think about Ophelia Munzer, my adopted mom, who put an incredible career in with her husband, Dick Munzer, my mentor, and the two of them serving in the State Department with distinction for so many years. And they were GS whatevers, right? And they were celebrated, they were honored, they were seen as having believed in community, believed in our country, and that they were lifted up as being those public servants. And we have lost that. We have lost our way in celebrating civil service. And so any chance I get, you know, I say, I'm handed a microphone that's often followed by applause, but really I've got a whole team behind me that never gets a microphone. They never get applause. And so it's time for us to remember that there are so many civil servants like these three dynamic women that are out there working hard every day to lift up our community. And so I, for one, want to say thank you for doing that. Thank you for leading. Thank you for agreeing to serve and not be driven by the money, as was so eloquently stated by Mariela, because, you know, at the end of the day, the U-Haul never follows the hearse, right? And that's one of my favorite expressions. And if you come to my home, you know, I live in a pretty modest place, but Aleli and I chose that path a long time ago so that if the opportunity ever presented for me to serve the way she has served for 20 years in a classroom in the international district in the deepest pocket of poverty in Albuquerque, that we'd be able to say yes. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to all the civil servants in New Mexico, whether they're local public bodies, counties, or state or federal employees. We're grateful for our civil servants, and you three are amongst the best. Mayor Keller got it right when he said that you would be leading this team and being directors and leaders in his administration. So congratulations to him. I texted him a photo of you four dynamic women having this conversation on Cafecito con Colon, and I said, I got the cream of the crop today on Cafecito con Colon as we celebrate Women's History Month, because you ladies are making history in the city of Albuquerque, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for it. I'll let Jessica, you bet. I'll let Jessica ask a final question. I'm gonna go off screen again so we can keep the four of you to camera. I hear that our closed captioning is actually working.
Okay.
And again, because I'm all codo, do you know what codo means, Jessica?
Yeah, I know what
You
cola
do?
means.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of the young kids, they don't use that expression. It was
No,
my
that's
dad.
like, I love saying that word. I'm very
Right?
coda myself. Yeah.
Are you? So I'm all codo, and I'm not willing to pay for closed captioning as much as I want to have it. I'm just too cheap. And but Dr. Dog got me tuned in to not Dr. Dahl. Did I say Dr. Dahl? It wasn't Dr. Dahl that got me tuned into this, but we turned on the closed captioning that's here. Dr. Dawson, Norm Dawson, great doctor of chiropractic care. Dr. Dawson, thank you for tuning me into this, because I think our closed captioning is working. It's not perfect, especially when we speak in Spanish, it gets all confused. So speak more Spanish, because then some funny words come up on the little screen there. But we got closed captioning. I'm excited about that. I want to give a birthday shout out to another Albuquerque living legend, John Cordova. It's his birthday today. John J. Cordova, one of the original pioneers with Hearst Cordova, the original pioneers in New Mexico for public relations and communications. If you're in the PR or communications field, you probably know about John Cordova's legacy. So happy birthday to Richard Bosson, our former justice on the Supreme Court. Congratulations to Judge Baca, who hours ago, this morning at about 8 o'clock, was elevated to our New Mexico Court of Appeals after coming from a little condado de San Miguel. I think he's a Las Vegas hero, and he's now on our Court of Appeals. So we congratulate him. Happy birthday to my lifelong buddies, Carissa Ortero, a great daughter of a fantastic santero in New Mexico and a great artist in her own right. And to my buddy Patrick Ortiz, who stood with me on my wedding day almost 25 years ago. So ladies, thank you for being on Cafecito con Colon. I'm going to let Jessica take it away from here. We're running just a few minutes over, and I love that. I hope you'll be able to stay with us because I always know she has a good closing question. And just know that you have my continued gratitude. I'm in your corner, ladies, whatever you need. Happy Women's History Month.
Thank you. Can I give a shout out? Because I have the benefit of working for Sarita Nair, who is the first woman Chief Administrative Officer. She made history with that, and the leadership that she provides for men and women and others in our city is just second to none.
She's an amazing leader. She transformed along with some other great folks at, Evan Blackstone and when Mayor Keller was the state auditor, they did a beautiful job there. Trying to build on their legacy. I always say that we've had three. We've had, our last two elected state auditors transform that office. Hector Valderas, our current AG, really understood what it meant to have subpoena power, and he built out a special investigations division. Mayor Keller, because of his legislative background, really understood the power of gathering data and created a government accountability office, and then provided those reports to people who make policy in New Mexico and created that office. And those two gentlemen really who preceded me transformed that office and made it the office it is today. I hope I make them proud with the work I do on a daily basis. It's been 807 days of awesome, and tomorrow will be even better. And I'm honored to be leading in that office in their footsteps. So with that, we're going to give the final word to all four of you ladies, but I'm going to let Jessica lead that final word. Thanks to Enlace New Mexico, the New Mexico Hispanic Heritage Committee, and thank you to these fantastic civil servants and my co-hostess, Jessica Perea. Take it away.
Thank you. I just wanted to start off by saying I wanted to thank each one of you ladies for your leadership. You inspire not only me, but young women all around New Mexico and everywhere. And I think it's important for that representation, these little girls, when we look up to these positions, like Mariela was saying, we usually see white men, but when we see women of color, we see, it inspires us because we see ourselves in the future. And with that being said, I wanted to say, what's one piece of advice each one of you could give a young woman today? Michelle, do you want to start?
I can say that because I have two young women, my daughters, Paloma and Quetzalin, and the advice that I give them is that they should always remember where they come from, because their roots will take them very far, and to believe in themselves. They can do anything. And I think that they believe that because we've told them that their whole lives. And I think that's true for all women, is imagine yourself in your future and believe that you can be there, and you do the hard work and you get there. And I see that in my own daughters right now.
That's very beautiful. Mariela?
I would say it's two things. It's never too late, right? I meet a lot of women who want to change careers and want to do something different with their lives, and even young women who are like, I just don't know what I want to do yet. And just know it's never too late. You can change careers, you can make things happen. But I agree, like, you have to believe in yourself, and believe in your inner voice, your intuition that tells you like it's okay, you need to just push through. I would also say when you feel, I just had this conversation with someone, they said, I'm waiting to get fired because I feel like I challenge too much. I feel like I say too much. I feel like I'm pushing it too hard. And I actually Michelle and I were just talking about this yesterday, and I think her voice comes to me, which is like, now's the time. It's okay to push, right? And in a voice of another colleague, if you don't feel nervous sometimes about pushing, it's because you're becoming complacent. So push, because that's what your voice is telling you, is that it's not okay and that we need to fight and we need to push. So I will say, I think those are my what I always give other women advice on, is it's okay to have that feeling of like, oh my God, am I pushing too hard? Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to do that.
Carolyn?
For me, there's a couple of things that I always tell not only my kids, but my mentees is one, always surround yourself with people who believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And two, success is all relative. Get to the level of success that you want to achieve, but the true success is not how you've achieved, but how you helped others to achieve.
Thank you. That was very, very beautiful and so inspiring.
Thank you for this invitation, and I hope everyone has a beautiful spring starting tomorrow.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure sharing a screen with you, Michelle, Mariela. Hopefully we can get together soon and just brainstorm about how we're going to change this world together.
Thank you guys so much.
And Jessica, you call us if you need us. We're all here to be mentors to you as well. You're our future, and we're really so glad that you're being mentored by Brian. He's going to take you to a whole level, but also being in a group with Lawrence and with my wonderful friends over there at Enlace. I know we're going to see great things from you, Jessica.
Thank you.
That's for sure. Ladies, thank you for joining me on Cafecito con Colon today. Tomorrow is that first day of spring. Thank you, Michelle, for mentioning that. We're going to have 75 degrees right here in Burque and aquí in the land of enchantment, the Tierra del Encanto, the 47 star on that beautiful flag of the United States of America. It's a time for renewal. As the Jewish community gets ready to observe Passover next Saturday, it is a time for renewal, and I hope that we can all make a new commitment to embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion, lifting up women who lead in our communities, celebrating our civil servants, and living a life of gratitude for all that we have here in New Mexico. Now, look, starting on Monday, we have coordinated with all of the candidates who are running for Congress in the Democratic primary through the State Central Committee. That election is going to take place on March 30th. The public will vote in this election of those who are nominated from the parties, both the Democrat and Republican. That will take place on June 1st. So we are well on our way to filling the vacancy created by Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland here in the 1st Congressional District. We will host each of those candidates starting on Monday. We'll have one on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and a special Sunday edition of Cafecito con Colon. So we'll have 7 of those candidates one-on-one right here on Cafecito con Colon. So don't miss it. Come back. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. And I'm grateful to each and every one of you. Have a beautiful and fabulous Friday. And tomorrow, Sabido Gigante on the first day of spring. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies.